From the TireRack.com Fox Sports Radio studios, here's Jay Glazer, LeVar Arrington, Rob Stone, and former Cardinals GM Steve Keim.
We welcome you to draft night. The Chicago Bears are on the clock for the first time in 77 years. That franchise will make the number one overall pick. Jay Glazer is right next to me. And
there'll be more offensive linemen taking this first round, I think, than ever before.
Oh, wow.
There'll be 6 quarterbacks taken in the first half of this draft.
Oh, wow.
So as expected, after they traded Justin Fields to Pittsburgh, Chicago, with that number one overall pick, courtesy of the Carolina Panthers, is going to sign, but picks the former Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams out of USC. And this is a pick that, Steve, makes a lot of sense on a lot of levels for this franchise.
There's no question. I mean, this organization needed a lift. Obviously, big-time player from a great program. Has had a lot of success. He's got a big physical structure. I mean, you look at his hands are big. He's strong. Fits the profile for what they need in that cold weather atmosphere up there in Chicago.
Big arm to the point where he has so much confidence in himself, and I think in college he got himself in trouble with that. And I think in the pros he'll get coached to where he knows not to do that because things are a completely different level. And they'll obviously disguise so many different things in the pros, much more than college. So he's going to have to get better in that area. But just as far as just the tools of him being able to do some things when things are not there, that they're not so clear, I just think he's on a different level, him and Jaden. Than
my first thought is, who is he throwing the ball to? Do you feel good about the receivers that they have? DJ Moore, they added Keenan Allen, they have Tyler Scott. But the reality of it is can Keenan Allen stay healthy? There's always going to be the health concerns until he proves that otherwise.
Back to Jaden Daniels. Here's a guy that stayed in school, and as a result of that, made himself an awfully wealthy guy because he was nowhere near this.
Wasn't in the
got
first
the Heisman,
round.
but he played 5 years out there in college, and because he stayed in school, he was able to really work on improving and showing people how much he could improve, and that's why he was worth that second pick of the draft. And I still think he's going to improve an awful lot more.
That's a great point. To have that ability and opportunity to mature, to have the wherewithal to work on himself and work on the things that were needed to be worked on in order to make himself a more attractive player. Not only did he make himself a more attractive player, but it proved out that he would be the best player in college football this year by winning the Heisman. So,
Steve, what's your read on Drake May out of North Carolina?
Well, he's got prototypical size and athleticism. He really does look the part. The thing that concerns me the most is here is a guy who has not probably lived up to the potential in terms of you're playing for a team like North Carolina, and you would like to see a guy like that raise the bar for that university to take them to a higher amount of wins. And to me, again, it's concerning just because I've seen guys in the past, whether it's guys like Kyle Bowler in the past, whether it's guys like Blaine Gabbert. They have all the skills and the attributes, but there's something missing, and I thought he was a little too careless with the football, in my opinion.
But the first wide receiver, LeVar, has taken Marvin Harrison, a Big Ten guy, a guy who has just immense amount of talent, and you watch him live up close on the floor. My goodness,
I saw you
talented.
before that game in Horseshoe in Columbus, and seeing, he's one of those guys. Seeing is believing. If you thought that he was anything but what the hype says he is, you see him in person. All those questions are answered. All those questions are melted away.
As the Falcons, again, there are teams that were trying to trade up with the Falcons. Falcons were staying tight. I was always told that defensive player, but about 5 days ago, somebody said, don't be surprised if they actually shock everybody and go with the quarterback, even though they already had one. And the guy in Michael Penix that I know that they loved in there, that would surprise us all.
Man, that would be a shakeup if Atlanta goes with Penix.
Yeah, I'm sure it's shocking, obviously, because they just put a lot of money into Kirk Cousins. But I guess you fall in love with someone and you don't come off, and no matter what you've done in free agency. I don't know, Steve, what do you think about that?
No, I agree, especially at that position. Listen, if you fall in love with somebody and you have an opportunity to grab them, particularly a young guy at this point, you cannot forecast and guarantee who is going to be your starter in terms of the injuries. Obviously, again, Kirk's coming off of Achilles. That's a 9-month injury. And once you come back off that, who's to say what your movement in the pocket's going to be? So I think when you protect yourself, you get yourself a young backup who can grow and can learn within the system with a new staff, with Raheem and those guys. I think it could be a solid pick.
By the way, we talked earlier about how the Bears had a great offseason already. Now you had Caleb Williams. Now you had Roma Dunze, who there were teams that had Roma Dunze as their top wide receiver on the board. And, man, you talk about a kid who just – there's no flaws that anybody really saw when it talked about his game, when it talked about him, his character, how much he loves football. I think that's a great pick.
Can I revisit the pick of J.J. McCarthy to the Minnesota Vikings?
Sure.
I just got to do this. Can you imagine a better opportunity to you saw how excited he was when he got drafted. Let's see, Jordan Addison,
Sam Darnold,
Justin Jefferson,
yeah,
Mr. Hawkinson, and you just got Aaron Jones in your backfield.
And Kevin O'Connell.
And Kevin O'Connell
Great
as a
quarterback
leader.
coach.
I would be remiss if I didn't say, how in the world does J.J. McCarthy find himself in probably the most advantageous situation of all quarterbacks in this draft?
I don't think there's any doubt. And that's awful help for a young quarterback. And I just saw on the NFL Network the comp for him was Alex Smith. If that's the comp, that's a pretty good comp.
Right.
Alex Smith, whether that was I don't know whether that was a compliment or not. For me, it's a compliment.
Bo Nix will end up being that next pick to Sean Payton, the Denver Broncos. And, guys, Sean Payton has called me the last 48 hours about Bo Nix. And he said, I still want everybody to think we're going J.J. McCarthy, but Bo Nix has been my guy for the last 2 months.
And he's a player.
The night of his pro day, they actually gave Bo Nix all these this install, all these plays that he needed to remember, and they gave him a private workout the next day after his pro day, and they were all in, beyond all that. Now, he actually was just calling me about perhaps trading back a couple picks if he's able to. And he's like, do you think anybody else wants him? You think anybody else is up for Bo Nix? And I was like, I think you're the guy. But after Michael Penix went to Atlanta, Sean Payton all of a sudden said, you know what, I'm not going to entertain moving back. This is the guy I want. I'm not going to play any other games. He thought maybe he can get an extra 3 or 4, something along those lines. But he said, I'm just going to stay tight. He doesn't like this guy. He loves Bo Nix. Got a little breaking news here for you, Rob. Got a little breaking news.
Uh-oh.
The Kansas City Chiefs have traded up with the Buffalo Bills, who is their conference rival. It still kind of shocks me that the Bills have done this because the Chiefs, who are they going to select? The fastest dude in the draft, Xavier Worthy, who ran a 4.23. Was it 4.23 at the combine? 4.23 at the combine, fastest ever. That's who they are giving to Patrick Mahomes to shore up that wide receiver core. Unbelievable. That look, I just for me, look at it like Buffalo. Why help? The team that you have to kind of topple for just a couple of picks, and helping them get a guy like that. It's wow. That one's wow. That one's a wow, right?
But who are some teams that you're saying are walking away tonight going, wow, we did ourselves right?
Well, I think when you look at the two teams who had the 2 first-round picks, whether it be the Cardinals or Minnesota, I think both those teams have gotten significantly better with 4 players that can really play.
Chicago
as well. Yes.
And Chicago as well.
Yeah,
So those 3 teams, again, I think that the opportunity to have 2 first-round picks, they capitalized.
Yeah, I like the Lions, what they did. I like a lot of these teams getting those offensive linemen. I like Pittsburgh's offensive linemen all the way down there. But, hey, look, the biggest story of this draft by far. No, not Kansas City Chiefs. No.
Penix?
It's Penix, the Atlanta Falcons.
To the Falcons.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, there's all these stories out there about, man, Kirk Cousins had no idea, didn't know about it. And I was texting with somebody while this was going on, saying, another head coach saying, hey, you think if Kirk knew they were going to go quarterback, he'd ever sign with Atlanta? He's like, absolutely not.
Let me ask you guys this. Do you think it's because he's coming off of the injury as well?
No, I think they loved him that much. They love Penix. And when you love a quarterback that you think, hey, this guy is going to be a perennial Pro Bowler over and over and over.
But you've already started to
But that's not going to happen with Kirk. Then you think that highly of him. I think they looked and said, we got to go with it. But I agreed. Like, there's so many other needs there. But it was crazy. I heard it the other day. Talked to Raheem Morris today. He repeated it. I didn't believe it. And especially not that he goes, it's probably too rich up there later on if we trade, because I knew there were people looking for him. But I said, really? He said, oh, man, he loved him. Absolutely loved him. Wow. Steve, I guess if you're that convicted on somebody.
Yeah. You just take him. You don't look back.
Really?
Do it.
Really?